Okay, we're back here in the studios with part 2 of our Focus on Football program. We just had Rich Everts up, who mainly handles the secondary for the Norristown Eagles. Now I have with me Jack Griffiths, who is the line coach of the Norristown Eagles. And obviously, by definition, line coach, you handle the offensive and defensive lines. What's the toughest part about your job?
Well, I would say probably trying to get the various personalities that we get, kids of the various backgrounds and outlooks, to function smoothly together. It's not where you have just 1 or 2 players. It's a combination of 7 people, each with an important job to do and each a different way to do it. And offensively, trying to get 7 people to mesh at one time in every given play is a challenge, to say the least.
Right, it's definitely a team sport, but I guess your linemen, if they don't gel as a team with all the gears clicking at once, they're not going to be too successful.
That's right. In some other position, say a back, might be able to make a wrong step here or a wrong step there, and nobody in the world even know that he did it, maybe not even him. But with the 7 people that have to be almost precision-like up front, just one wrong step, one wrong move, whatever, and the whole play is a complete failure, and it's just a matter of like maybe a few inches here or a misplaced step there or something along that line.
Well, focusing on the offensive line first, how's this year's group, and compare, let's say, with in previous seasons? You've been here, what, 13 years?
Right, 12, 13 years.
Right.
You could never really compare 2 groups from year to year, but if you were to make a comparison, this would probably be right up near the top with the workers. This is a real blue-collar group. We don't have any high school All-Americans yet. Maybe we will. But there's no Jeff Reinhardts, Jerome Reinhardts, Mark Hoisington yet that are preseason All-Americans or preseason All-Staters. But they're a very hard-working group, and everyone has contributed. We have a lot of kids who are close in ability, and we might have like 3 or 4 good guards, but only 2 can play. So they're pushing each other, and it's that type of group where everybody sees their role. They know that they don't have it made. Nobody's got a thing locked up. They are working hard to save a position, to get a position, whichever the case might be. And in working like that, they have so far been successful, the success we've had, because they are workers. Not that there's not talent there, there is. But everyone, I would say, so far has really put out close to 100% of their effort. Nobody really gives 100% even though they say they do, but it's probably as close to maximum as you can get. And it's that work ethic, if you want to call it that, that's really made us successful so far. It's a good, hard-working group that I think is going to get better. We're comparing them to like almost climbing a ladder. That when we started out, very few of these kids had experience, game experience. To name a few names, Bill Angelucci had played last year, but mostly defense. Mike Palladino only played a little bit near the end of the year when we had that situation with the ineligibility. He filled in at that spot. But outside of those 2 with just that limited amount of experience, even though we're predominantly a senior team, very few of the seniors had game experience. So it was almost starting with a brand new, fresh group. And we told them, based on their ability, if they could just get better week after week, that we were going to be a fine football team. And we started off at, we'll say, level 1, and by the time the Kenrick game had come, we had climbed the ladder 3 or 4 rungs, and we're stressing to them, if they can continue to climb that ladder, if they don't accept where they are and get satisfied, that we are going to be a fine football team when it's done. And they've looked at it that way, and they've worked hard, and they're continuing to work hard, and we just sort of have the ladder left to climb now up the league season. We had one little stumble that we shouldn't have had, but they have really progressed from week to week, and every one of them from end to end, and who's ever been in there, we haven't had the same kids in. Certain kids have improved and taken a job from somebody else, and it's been that kind of competition. They've just continually progressed because of that.
Okay, during a ball game, what does Coach Griffiths do?
Well, when we have the ball, the main thing I try to do is forget the play itself. Focus in pretty much on almost, we'll say, tight end to tackle, even leave the split end out of the picture. Offensively, defensively, what fronts are they giving us? What stunts are they trying to run? How are they shifting? Where are they shifting to? Is there a pattern to it? Is there something that we can run based on what they're giving us? You know, that type of thing. Not too much as to an overall game plan or looking at the backs and, you know, cheering it on. Pretty much trying to focus in on just that one small area, tackle to tight end, both sides of the ball, see what we're doing either well or poor. Do we have kids that are doing something wrong that we either have to correct? Are they giving us something defensive we should be taking advantage of that we're not? Are they hurting us with something that we better get away from and not try and beat them there, etc.? And offensively, that's pretty much, you know, it. When the kids come out, when we switch ball, it's going to try to be quick change of ideas, because again, I'm going to try and worry about the defensive line. Some people work mainly with one area and they can talk to the kids when they come out. But some of our kids stay in defensively anyway, but trying to get a feel from the kids coming out of the game as to what's going on, what can go, what should we stay away from, maybe some corrections to make real quick, but then by that time it's back to watch the same area now, but from the other side of the coin. Now we'll be watching pretty much our defense. Are their blocking schemes pretty much what we thought they would be? Are they changing up on us? Are they giving us something that we didn't expect? Do we have any kids that aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing? You know, do we have certain rules that we want our defensive linemen to follow? Is so-and-so over-penetrating? Is so-and-so not closing down on a trap? Is somebody giving up something to the outside because he's not stepping to a wing, whatever? And pretty much concentrating again on that same area, but now from the other side of the coin. And
just turn the hat around and take it the other way.
Just turn it inside out, and now we're on defense. But basically that's it. I very seldom, after a game, know who even carried the ball half the time. So I would say, how many yards did so-and-so have? Jaquise Frechette. I don't know, did he carry the ball tonight? I saw somebody go through the hole, but you know, who had the ball, what the secondary did. By the time the game's over, I'd have to watch a videotape or watch our film on Monday to know, because I pretty much saw maybe 10 to 12 players on either side of the ball the entire night.
Very narrow
tunnel vision. Tunnel vision,
right.
Exactly.
How would you term your defense? Is it a passive one? Is it an aggressive one? Is it what Marion Campbell calls the Eagles, passively aggressive?
Well, we're basically a hit-and-read defense. We're going to hit, shed, try and pursue to the ball well. I would say we're a very aggressive team for being a hit-and-read defense. Now, a lot of teams, are truly a hit-and-read. They sort of just play off you and then want to truly read up and down the line. We attack you first. But then we don't want to get too aggressive. We want to attack you. But if we have a tendency with our defensive linemen to do anything, it's over-penetrate and over-pursue. Plymouth Whitemarsh, they didn't beat us, we beat ourselves. We were constantly 3 yards in the backfield, but the ball was by us. And we have the type of kid that just, I think it's a Norristown attitude, which is great. They want to go after you. They don't want somebody to tell them hit and shed and place off. They want to hit people, which is great. So we'll attack people. We'll go after people. But after we do, we've got to be under control. We tell our kids we want you to be a wild, crazy animal that's disciplined. And we put that little extra in there. And that's what we want. We do go after people, but we try and do it with discipline. We have all set rules that we have to follow and so forth. And when we operate within that framework, we are an aggressive team that still hits and reads and stresses pursuit. And even with some of our bigger kids that we have now or have had, 280-pounders, 210-pounders, 190-pounders, we always seem to be very physical, which is great. But we also usually have good mobility, and this year is an excellent team for mobility. Even our big kids really run well, pursue well, and if somebody can turn it in, we're usually there for the tackle, or if somebody happens to make a mistake, usually somebody compensates for them. So I would characterize this as a very aggressive hit-and-read team.
Okay, flipping back to the offensive line now for a second. Last 2 years, Norristown blessed with, of course, the talents of Wayne Denson, Carmen Bello in the backfield. Bello, a bullish type of runner, and Denson, what more can you say about him? Now this season, the running backs being Van James, Jaquise Frechette, what have you, and with a junior quarterback that has excellent mobility, and Frank Cassano, what responsibilities, or how does your responsibilities or philosophies shift with the offensive line? What changes are there in past seasons to this one?
Well, it's not so much a major change, but needless to say, even with Carmen, when you have a Wayne Denson, you know you're going to primarily be an outside-oriented team. Wayne could run inside. Carmen was good inside, but you know your bread and butter, if it comes down to the big play, it's going to be Wayne and it's going to be outside. And every other team in the league knows that. And it gets to be a challenge. We would work a lot of perimeter blocking. We would stress if we blocked maybe an hour blocking period in a given practice, 45 minutes was going to be on the perimeter game. And then we'd give a token maybe 10 or 15 minutes to working on the inside stuff. This year, I think with Jaquise, he's more of a bull, he's more of a power runner, so we spend conversely much more time on our inside game. And I think Coach Grove and the backfield coaches and so forth would be the first to agree with this. We probably haven't spent enough time or as much time as we should on the outside game, and it hasn't looked as good as it should. It's been effective, but not like it should. And a lot of it's been we've been concentrating too much on the inside game, and Jaquise and his power type running, and our traps have gone well, our powers have gone well. But it looks like our outside game isn't as effective as it should be, and it'll probably get better. We just have to get back to the idea of spending more time, working on the outside game. We're pretty much figuring when we lost Wayne that we don't have an outside runner, and we do. We've got kids that'll run outside, but we just haven't gotten the outside game going the way it should be. I think, with Frank and his scrambles, he'll get outside for him, but a lot of that's just on his quickness and the way the play's set up. It's a lot of deception.
Does that help the offensive lineman having a quarterback who is not your classic drop-back passer, but one who has good speed and can be mobile?
Phenomenally.
Yeah,
a good quarterback like Frank, and he is. He can throw the ball well, he runs well. some of the things that he can do that just are so fluid and natural for him makes mistakes that have been made somewhere up and down the offensive line look like they either were planned or that there wasn't a mistake made, and even sometimes broken plays don't even look like broken plays that are picking up yardage. And then once we have a lot of plays that are designed for Frank alone to be out there either by himself or with maybe one blocker. And having Jaquise certainly helps, because anywhere he goes, the defense is going to be going with them. And even in other years, when we've had Wayne or whatever, traditionally where our fullback went, we pretty much went. Now, and it was a key, and we knew that. But pretty much if we were running a toss or something, the fullback could lead, or if the fullback came towards the line and when he was getting the ball in a trap. So now with Frank, we'll show action in a particular way, and we'll call in the huddle, even play, we'll say a bootleg, which will just mean one guard will away from the play, will pull to lead Frank. When all the action goes one way, it'll just be the guard and Frank and get what they can get. We'll have certain plays where we'll call it a naked bootleg, where there's nobody even with the intention of being in front of Frank. We'll just run a particular play, maybe like a toss to the left. The guard will pull to the left, everybody will go to the, just like a toss. Frank will just keep the ball off that action, and it'll be him and probably a defensive end. And we're just going to pit Frank's athletic ability with their defensive end's ability one-on-one, and we're betting on Frank. And we'll often call a naked bootleg off of any play, which virtually says to Frank, you're on your own when you get out there, now let's see how good you are, kid. And he's come through. He can throw the ball off, he can run off, and he's done both.
Let me ask you before I let you scoot out of the studio here.
Okay.
Some of the terms that you use, I know when Rich Everts was here, we went over some of the terms that the non-football fan might not be familiar with. Let's say a trap play. Can you break it down in layman's terms?
Okay, we have an awful lot of terms and calls, and so as a matter of fact, on every play that we run, we'll probably have 2 or 3 people at least along the line of scrimmage making some kind of a call. If we come out, we're just going to run a very simple straight-ahead play, which is normally man-on-man blocking. We might not want to block man-on-man. We might want some kind of a block where we get some crossing or folding action, so we'll have calls like gates and tags and cages and longs and shorts and so forth. And everything means something, but only one of those means something on a given play. All right, for example, if we're going to run a belly play, the right guard may call a gate, which just simply translates as guard around tackle, sounds good, or a tag, tackle around guard. Everybody else might be yelling long, short, blue, Mississippi. The defense has no idea which one of those 7 calls were made as the right one, but there is one, and even if they knew it, it might not mean anything to them. But we might get a full block, which is a man blocking down on a lineman or out on a lineman, whichever the case might be, in place of the fellow that's supposed to block him, while he'll then loop around and pick up the man that the other person was supposed to block. It's an exchange of assignments. A trap play will basically double team the nose, put 2 men on one. The guard will pull by a trap. We hope a lineman will commit himself because he's unblocked. We would usually send our tackle on a linebacker. And we'll hope that that tackle will commit himself being unblocked, thinking he's going to be a hero. Here's my chance. I'm in the backfield untouched. The trap will come with the guard coming from the offside. By trap, we mean that we're hoping to get him in a trap situation where we'll just block him from the inside out. Now, and our terminology, we talk to other coaches from other schools, and they can't believe some of the things that we do. You know, do you think you're at Michigan State, or is this the Eagles? And just over a period of time, the kids have paid, to them it's natural. You know, we give them maybe 4 or 5 different ways to block one play, and we would hope that no matter what defense they give us, we'd be able to make whatever call is necessary. We look at the defense, see where they're lined up. They may have shifted in a certain way to try and take something away from us. We look at it and say, well, it's not the defense we expected, but that's okay. If he's there and he's there, we'll just skate, we'll tag, we'll fold, we'll double team, whatever we have to do. And the kids, you know, pick it up pretty well.
And it's complex, but that has to help the player as far as when he graduates and goes on to a college level program, right?
It usually has. There have been a lot of kids who have come back. Mm-hmm. Mark Hoisington, Ray Hoisington, whoever, you know, have played at the college level, I mean the big-time college levels, the West Virginias, the Arizonas, and so forth, and they'll come back and then they'll say, in reality, I think we do a little bit more here than we do in college. I said, well, no, wait a minute, you're not sure what you're saying there. You know, you're not going to tell me that you do more here than you would do, let's say, at a Michigan State or in Arizona or, you know, wherever. He says, hey, we don't do half the stuff there. They tell us this with maybe one possibility different, and we've got to go do it. And here we try to give them, for every given play, maybe 3 to 4 different ways that they could possibly block it, no matter what they see in front of them. And some kids, I'll be honest, some kids do have a little trouble picking it up. I'll let it go of that. Other kids have absolutely no trouble whatsoever, and we have 2 kids now playing side by side that are very intelligent, and they also have football sense. And they come up with more schemes. They have schemes made up on their own that we haven't even put in yet. If we have 3 ways of blocking a play, they might have 7, because they make things up as they go through the game. As long as each knows what the other one is doing, and then they'll include the center with it or the tight end, we'll have schemes that we'll watch the film and we'll say, when did we block that? And I want to look good, so I'll say to coach, oh, well, we put that in like on Wednesday afternoon. We didn't know they did it until in the game, but it worked fine. And it's just when you have kids that have football sense and a little innate intelligence, we would like to think there's nothing you can give us that we can't handle. Now, naturally, it's not going to happen all the time, but we'd like to think that.
So this is the key to the Norristown program. You're taking credit for all this stuff. Okay, well, look, I'll let you get running here, but thank you very much for coming up to our studios and really kind of explaining a few things, because I guess really the glamour positions, the quarterback, the running back, you know, the pass rushing defensive end and all that stuff, everybody overlooks the line, and yet that's really what makes the team go.
Yeah, and every lineman we've had will tell you, and they're probably sick of hearing it by now, from the time that they're a sophomore till the time that they graduate, one of the first things they hear on the first day of practice every August and about maybe twice a day from there to Thanksgiving is that when we win, you know who is not going to get the credit. It's going to be the fullback, the tailback, the quarterback. You know who's not getting the credit. But when you lose, you'll get all the credit you can handle. If you want to call it credit, you'll get all the ink you can handle, because when you lose, the line loses the game. But when you win, the backs and the ends win the game, and they accept that, and that's a lineman's lot. You know, you're not going to, unless you're a Freilich, you might get the Heisman Trophy, but they lost 3 in a row, so he might be out. But we tell them, you know, if you expect any credit, no. The only credit you'll get might be from me, and what does that mean? Nothing. The only thing you'll probably hear from the media or whatever is when you lose a game, the line didn't do this, the line didn't do that. It's never what the line did. It's always what they didn't do. So they accept that, and that's part of their outlook and, you know, the way that they approach the game. They're accepting it, and, you know, that's life.
They ought to be thrilled now, because we've had a line coach here. He's given you the publicity, and plus those guys are bigger than me. You know, I have to be careful about this.
That's true.
But anyway, thanks for coming up to the studio, and we'll be back in just a moment with the final part of our program. And with us will be head coach Roger Grove, and I'm sure we'll have a fascinating time talking to him. We'll be back in a moment.